In this session, we want to look at adding a parameter to our method. So here's a UML model for our stuff with the 3 properties and the 2 methods. The double stuff method, you'll notice now, inside the parentheses, the input to the method, the function, has a parameter. Okay? The parameter is named kind, and its type of value is a string. And so the parameter name becomes the variable that's going to take on that value inside of this method once it's called. Meaning that if the double stuff method is ever called, it should be passed a string that we will call the argument. Okay, the constructor is the same as it has been last couple sessions. In the double stuff method, then you'll notice that I have a parameter here. Okay. The box hanging half in, half out of our UML to signify that this is being passed in. When the method is called or invoked, it is being passed that's P-A-S-S-E-D, a value that we're going to refer to as kind. And so then in the method itself, I'm going to take that value kind and assign it to this member property B. Okay. So then down here in our system, when we actually call this method, we say, oh, how much is going to be assigned thing member double stuff? We will pass it an actual value, the argument, that is going to become the value of kind, the parameter named kind. And so I'm passing it the literal string peppermint. Okay? And again, we're saying that kind up here is expected to be a string. So that all matches up. Let's take a look at the code. In the code, here's our class. And what we see is in the double stuff method here, I have said it has a parameter called $kind. Okay? Keep in mind that we could explicitly state that $kind is a string type of value. Okay? And it's not bad practice to do. And so then we say that this member property B is assigned that value that was passed into it, known by the name of kind. Okay? In both cases, we do the same thing there. Okay? And so then finally down here in our code, when we call the double stuff method, we are passing it, we're calling the double stuff method saying that it should pass the literal string peppermint into the double stuff method. That becomes the value of kind, and it does its thing. Okay, let's see it in action. Select all. Okay, there we go. Copy. Bring up my editor. I'll paste it in here. I will save that. Bring up my command line interpreter and say, hey, PowerShell, take a look. And PowerShell says, I'm happy. I'm fine with that. Okay, did it do its thing? Yeah. Why not? Why wouldn't it have? But if you are the doubting type, you could come over here and say, oops, right dash host $thing2 member property. Which one was it we were changing here? B, I believe. Yes, property B was a string. And then I'll save that, and I will run this and see that, sure enough, it is peppermint. That is after we changed it. Okay, I know what you're thinking. So let me copy that. Let me paste that in here before the call. We'll save that, run it again, and we see that, sure enough, before our function call, before our method call, it had the value of initial value, and after the call, it had the property B had the value of peppermint. Okay, let's see. What else should we look at here? I suppose a couple of things we could do is what would happen if we said, get my face out of the way and don't pass it in a value. Okay, so leave the parentheses empty, save that. I come over here, oops, didn't mean to do that. And I run it. And sure enough, we see an error message. Cannot find an overload. Oof. We'll talk about overloading methods in another session later on. But essentially, I can have, in many languages, 2 methods with the same name. And you're like, well, wait a minute, how could that be? Because how would it know which one to call? And the answer is every method has a signature. The signature is a combination of the name and the parameters. And so as long as the signature is different, as long as there's something different about the name and the parameters, then it can distinguish them apart. Well, if I just said I'm going to have two methods with the same name, it's not the name that's different, so it must be something about the parameters that are different. And so the short of it is that as long as I have either a different number of parameters or parameters with different types, it can distinguish them. Okay, like we'll deal with that later. For the moment, what I've done though is I said, okay, I tried calling it without passing it any value when I said that it was expecting to see a value. And so it says it can't find an overload for double stuff and the argument count 0 at blah, blah, blah. Okay, and the argument count of 0 is because I was passing it 0 arguments. Okay. So hopefully that message makes a little more sense now. We could also then say, what if I did that the other way around? What if I tried passing it peppermint, but I said, oh, it doesn't take any arguments. Okay, so I save that, and now I run it, and we get an error message. Probably weren't surprised about that, but what does the error message say? It's not the same, obviously. All right, and it says at this file, at this line, blah blah blah. This property B is assigned kind, and the variable is not assigned in the method. What do you mean the variable wasn't assigned? That's because when it passes that parameter becomes a variable, and it was never assigned a value. Nor did we ever assign kind in the method itself. I mean, I guess I could fix this by saying $kind is assigned, mint. I'll just do mint. Okay. So now, if I run this, I get an error message. But now it says it can't find the overload for double stuff with an argument count of 1. Again, that's because I'm passing it 1 argument, but I'm not accepting any here. So I satisfied the fact that it didn't know what kind was, but only with a local variable within the method, not as a parameter to the method. Okay, let's undo that. And one more thing that we can take a look at and learn from this. See, let me first of all save that and make sure that, yep, we're back to normal working here. And what would happen if I said, assign this member property C times 2? Okay. And you'll recall when we were talking about UML, we can be a little more flexible. We have a pattern that if we don't say, let me come back here to UML. If we don't say specifically that some name identifier is a member of this class, then we look at property A, we say, okay, is it a local variable that's defined here? No. We automatically go back to the class and say, oh, is it here? Yes, it is, and we're happy. Some languages will do that, some don't. PowerShell does not. So if I come back over here and say now that I have property C without the this, save that, come over here and run it, I get an error message. And the important thing is, what does the error message say? Does it make sense? The term property C is not recognized as a name of a commandlet function, script file, or operable program. Check the spelling of the name. Could be wrong. Maybe it's a path thing. We'll deal with paths later on, but it's not. And try it again. So a little less helpful there. But yeah, the problem is it's not recognizing property C. And in fact, oh, what if we said $ property C? Made it a name. Because you'd be like, you're right. Without the $, it's the name of something it has no idea what it was. It's thinking it's a command or something. Okay, let's make it a variable. Now we come over here, we run this, and we get a different error message yet. that says this member property C, that's underlined, variable is not assigned in the method. Okay. And so again, it says property C. It's much like we did with kind a few minutes ago. It says, oh, there's a variable called property C. I'll make one up. But wait a minute, I'm trying to use it before it was ever assigned anything. So it did not automatically look for property C as a member of the class. I do need to explicitly say that it is a member of the class if it is, if I intend it to be.